Hey everybody, this is the Mage of Ancients, and I'm here with my February 2019 update for my Valkyrie deck profile. If you guys have been following my videos, you guys probably remember when I first profiled this deck, where I actually incorporated Cyber Angels into this deck. Although, after some testing, I did realize that just incorporating the Cyber Angels just makes this deck a bit too slow. I decided to update this deck in order to make it a bit more flexible, so that way people don't have to rely so much on the Valkyrie OTK with Ride of the Valkyries and Mission for the Time Goddess. Nope, that's not really the main point of this deck anymore. Instead, it's more about just getting as many monsters on the field, powering them up, and just attacking for game. So I really hope you guys enjoy this deck profile. Before we get started, if you guys would like to see some other deck profiles for this new format, then let me know down in the comments what you guys would like to see. And if you haven't so already, be sure to subscribe to this channel and ring the notification bell so you stay updated on my latest deck profiles, weekly vlogs, card discussions, and other great Yu-Gi-Oh videos. With that being said, let's ride into this Valkyrie deck profile. To start off with the monsters, of course, I run 3 copies of Valkyrie Dritte. This monster lets you search for any other Valkyrie card from your deck to your hand, so it only makes sense to run 3 copies of it. And then afterwards, I run one of the latest Valkyrie monsters, 2 copies of Valkyrie Sexta. This is a pretty good extender. It came out from the Savage Strike booster set just recently, but it's not that good if you happen to draw all 3 Valkyrie Sextas in your opening hand without a means to get it out onto your field, like with Ride of the Valkyries or Valkyrie or with Celestial Transformation, excuse me. So, Valkyrie Sexta, if it's special summoned, then you can special summon one other Valkyrie monster from your deck to your hand. So basically, the play would be to special summon Valkyrie Sexta, and then special summon Dritte from your deck, so that way you can add one other Valkyrie card from your deck to your hand. Then afterwards, I run 2 copies of each of these Valkyries. Valkyrie Zweite, Valkyrie Erste, and Valkyrie Brunhilde. So, Zweite lets you pop a monster your opponent controls if it's summoned, and Erste lets you do a non-targeting banishing effect from your opponent's graveyard, and this Erste gains that same attack of the monster that you banish from your opponent's graveyard. So let's say that you banish your opponent's Thunder Dragon Colossus from their graveyard. Erste's attack would then become 2500, or is it 2600? Either way, it becomes that monster's attack that was banished from the graveyard. Brunhilde gains 500 attack for each monster that your opponent controls. Also, it is unaffected by your opponent's spell effects, so if you're going against Sky Strikers, then this is already a pretty good bonus. And finally, the last Valkyrie monster that I run is Valkyrie Vierte. Only one of that. Of course, this is only because I was only able to get one Valkyrie Vierte from the Savage Strike packs that I opened, but that's not important right now. What's important is that you know how good this Valkyrie Vierte monster actually is. It's not as bad as a lot of people think. So what you can do is that you can excavate the top cards of your deck equal to the number of other Valkyrie monsters that you currently control. And if you happen to excavate a normal spell or normal trap from those cards, then you can add that card to your hand, and then you send the rest of the excavated cards to the graveyard. Otherwise, you shuffle all of the excavated cards back into your deck. So this is good for getting cards like Monster Reborn or Transmodify or was it Downbeat or even Ride of the Valkyries. Either way, it's just great and you can definitely benefit off of it. If you guys want to run more copies of each of these Valkyrie monsters just to be a bit more aggressive, a bit more aggro in your plays, then you can definitely go ahead and do that. But in the meantime, I think this is the best ratio of the Valkyries to run. Next up for the monsters that I run in my main deck, I run 1 copy of Archlord Christia. You guys can run more copies if you want to. And I also decided to incorporate my own little tech, 2 copies of Mozarta the Melodious Maestra. So what you could do with Archlord Christia, of course, is that you can get it out onto your field and neither player can special summon monsters. And Mozarta the Melodious Maestra, what's interesting about it is that once per turn you can special summon 1 Light Fairy, any Light Fairy from your hand, out onto your field. But the only catch is that you cannot special summon other monsters the turn you activate this effect except for light monsters. You could go into Saryuja Skull-Dread, but from that point on, if you happen to get Mozarta out onto your field, you cannot use its effect. But we're not really going for all Valkyrie monsters on the field anymore. Also, these are level 8 light fairies, so you can actually upgrade them from Valkyrie Brunhilde using Transmodify. Also, since these are level 8s, that you could use these as trade-in fodder. And since all the monsters that I'm running in my main deck are light monsters, then I'm running 2 copies of Honest. The Valkyrie monsters do have really cool effects that let them that gain attack, depending on whether the monsters my opponent has are either on the field or banished. But I feel like that is just not enough, so I decided to just incorporate Honest into this build. And then finally, for the main deck monsters, these are actually cards that I've seen several other Valkyrie deck players run. So I run 3 copies of the Agent of Creation and Mystical Shine Ball. So what you can do with these cards is that you can actually link climb with them. So what you can do is that you can pay 1,500 life points and then special summon all your Mystical Shine Balls either from your hand or deck. And then you could just send them away for link monsters and eventually link climb with the Saryuja Skull Dread, or you can go for Ningirsu the World Chalice Warrior, I think. And yeah, you can just continue your plays from there. But mainly these are here so that I can link climb with the Saryuja and just draw 4 cards and then put back 3. Just being able to draw 4 cards off of Saryuja and off of just 1 card basically is just really, really cool. And now for my spells, of course, since this is a Valkyrie deck, that I run 3 copies of Ride of the Valkyries. In case you guys don't know what this does, it's basically a pendulum summoning before Yuya made it cool. This is the card that makes the Valkyrie archetype just so much fun to play. If you guys don't know what this does, or if you guys haven't seen the show, then what you can do with Ride of the Valkyries is that you activate it and then special summon any number of Valkyrie monsters from your hand with different names. And if you happen to special summon 3 or more Valkyries with this card, then you take no battle damage until the end of the next turn. It also has a really cool searching effect, where you can banish this card from your graveyard and then search for Mischief of the Time Goddess from your deck. And I run 2 copies of that. I might as well give you a little close-up of this beauty. The Ride of the Valkyries and Mischief of the Time Goddess combo is the reason why Valkyries are so much fun to play. So what you can do with Mischief of the Time Goddess is that you can activate it at the end of your battle phase, and as long as you control only Valkyrie monsters, then you can activate this, and then neither player can activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation. And then after this card resolves, you can skip to the start of the battle phase of your next turn, and for that point on, you can just OTK your opponent from there. Afterwards, I run 3 copies of Celestial Transformation. Some people prefer to actually run Valhalla Hall of the Fallen instead of Celestial Transformation, but the problem with Valhalla that I found is that it's very conditional. You have to control no monsters on your field in order to special summon off of its effect. I just like Celestial Transformation for its flexibility. So let's say that you already normal summoned a monster this turn, but somewhere down along the road you do want to get an extra special summon, so that's why I decided to go with Celestial Transformation. And like you guys already saw near the beginning of this video, I do run level 8 monsters, so that's why I decided to go with 3 copies of Trade-In. The Valkyrie archetype does have a draw card called Apple of Enlightenment, but in my opinion it's just very dependent on your opponent having to pop it before you can really benefit off of it. So that's why I decided to just go with the level 8 monsters and 3 copies of Trade-In. And like I said multiple times in this video, I do run 2 copies of Transmodify and 2 copies of Downbeat. These are very good cards in this deck. So you have Agent of Creation, you have Valkyrie Dritta and all the other Valkyrie monsters. You even have the Shine Balls. So you can easily special summon the monster that you want from your deck that is a different level. Transmodify lets you special summon a monster that is a level higher, and Downbeat a level lower. And then finally for the spells, I do run 1 copy of 1 for 1 since Sexta is a level 1 monster. And finally 1 copy of Monster Reborn, because it is Monster Reborn. You just want to be able to special summon from either player's graveyard. So this is the spell lineup that I'm going with, but you guys can incorporate your own spell choices for spell cards if you want to. Now the extra deck, it's really up to you guys. As far as we know, we don't really go into the extra deck as often except to link climb. So like I said near the beginning of the video, I do run the Agent of Creation and the Shine Balls in order to link climb. And these are the monsters that I use: Link Spider, Imduke, and finally Saryuja Skull Dread. So Link Spider, of course, you can link summon it with just 1 normal monster, and the same with Imduke. And since you have Link Spider and your Imduke, and 1 Shine Ball and 1 Agent of Creation, then you can send those away for Saryuja Skull Dread. And since you link summon your Saryuja Skull Dread using 4 monsters, then you can get that last effect where you can draw 4 cards and then put back 3 into your deck. I may have already mentioned this before, but the Ride of the Valkyries and Time Goddess OTK is no longer the main point of this deck. Instead, you want to be able to get out as many monsters as possible and just attack your opponent for game at that turn. I feel that for any Valkyrie deck, you have to run these 3 cards in your extra deck in order to get that benefit off of Saryuja Skuldread. But you guys can also incorporate other Link monsters too. So my extra deck is almost filled with Link monsters just for that kind of flexibility. So I read 1 copy of Ningirsu. What you can do with this card is that you can send 1 card from both players' field to the graveyard, just like that, and it's non-targeting too. I also run Decode Talker because it has a negation effect and also easily gains attack based on the number of monsters that it points to. I also run what I call my Hipstar, Hippo Shining In, and of course the Nightmares, Nightmare Phoenix, and Cerberus, and I also run Proxy Dragon as well. But you guys can make this into a Nightmare Unicorn if you want to. I just don't have that right now. And finally, for the Link monsters, I run Underclock Taker and Link Karibo. Because Valkyrie Sexta, of course, is a level 1 monster, and Underclock Taker is a pretty good Link monster too. So what you can do is you can just try and lock out your opponent from summoning from the extra deck. Excuse me, I cannot talk today. So yeah, those are the Link monsters that I run, but you guys can incorporate what other Link monsters you guys want to. And to fill up for the last spots on the extra deck, I run the Utopia package, or what I call the Utopia family. Utopia, and Utopia Prime, and Utopia the Lightning. And the last card that I run, funnily, it's funny, but I decided to go with Gagaga Cowboy. I actually ran into this instance online where I tried to attack my opponent with game using all the monsters that I ran, but my opponent just happened to have like 500 to 200 points left. So I figured that maybe if I incorporate Gagaga Cowboy into my extra deck, then I could just overlay my 2 copies of Dritta or 2 copies of Honest, or a combination of both, and just burn my opponent for the last 800 life points. And finally, for my side deck, of course, you guys can incorporate whatever side deck choices you guys want to. But after hearing about the results of YCS Chicago, I figured that I would base my side deck choices based on how I think the rest of this format is going to go. So aside from Salamander Grace, which is getting some more support in the structured deck very soon, I think the rest of this format is going to see some more play of danger-based decks, Thunder Dragons, and Altergeists. So that being said, I run 3 copies of Ash Blossom. I just realized that people can actually play around this card, and also it's a once per turn effect, so people can really just find a way around it. So if you guys want, you guys could just cut this card down to just 2 copies instead of 3. But what I really want to max out on for this side deck is 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. What I want to max out on is Droll and Lockbird, so I run 3 copies of that. As long as the danger monsters are still legal, people are just going to get so much card advantage off of it. And it's just come to the point where maybe all of this drawing off of the danger monsters should just stop eventually. So yeah, that's why I decided to just max out on Droll and Lockbird. And it prevents searching for other decks too. And then afterwards, since this is a going second based deck for the Valkyries, I decided to just run 1 of each of the level 8 kaijus, Dogaran, Gameciel, and Godarla, right there. So yeah, these are also trade-in targets that you could use, and there are plenty of boss monsters out there, even though Rongo Miniad and Topologic Gumball Dragon are now banned. There are still several boss monsters that you could just tribute over in order to really let your Valkyries just shine through. So, for example, Thunder Dragon Titan, Thunder Dragon Colossus, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, things like that. And for the spells for my side deck, for those decks that just run Floodgates like Altergeists, I do run 3 copies of Twin Twisters. And after that, 3 copies of Called by the Grave. Because let's say that your opponent does run hand traps and they just want to stop your Valkyrie plays. So Called by the Grave is really good for that. You guys can in fact incorporate Called by the Grave into your main deck if you want to. So that's it for this deck profile update, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments if you guys would like to see some Valkyrie duels, and if you guys want to see some more deck profiles for this new format, then let me know down in the comments as well. So if you guys enjoyed this video and you want to help support the channel, then be sure to hit that like button, and if you haven't so already, subscribe and ring the notification bell so you stay updated on my latest Yu-Gi-Oh videos.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and I hope to see you again.